What's up, guys? Zaid here, and I recently posted my Thunder Dragon Link deck profile after being featured on DB Grinder's channel with it. Since then, I haven't seen yet, but my boy Yata told me that I'm going to be featured on his channel with a replay from it too. So, huge shout out to both of them for showing me some love and putting my replays up. And in the comments of my deck profile, I was getting a lot of questions asking how to play around the high impact hand traps. And there's not like one way that I could just tell you how to play around them. So I figured what we would do is go through some test hands and talk about it. And today, the one I'm going to be talking about in particular is Nibiru. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to hop into solo mode and we're just going to do a couple test hands. And I'm going to talk through my mentality playing around Nib. And honestly, the biggest takeaway from this is not even how to play around Nib in this deck, but using this as a way to learn for yourself how to play around hand traps in the future in any deck. Just hop in a solo, or if you own the deck in real life, sit there and like play out hands and assume that they have the hand trap you want to learn to play around. Play as if you know they have it, and then also think about what you would do if they hit you in each spot that you feel it would be high impact. And so I'm just going to host this solo and get into it. The first test hand, we've got Melody, Chaos Space, Lancia, Levy, Thunder Dragon. And also, guys, my list has changed a little bit. If you watch my deck profile, you'll notice like I didn't main a card like Lancia before. So if you're interested in the updated list, let me know in the comments and I'd be more than happy to share it with you guys. But I'm going to get right into showing how I would play through playing around Nib specifically. And so we're going to lead with the Thunder Dragon. And we're going to add double Thunder Dragon. I'll also a little bit talk about like the lines you can make to play around other hand traps as well. But I'm not going to go in depth on those. Because like for example right here, right? We're going to activate Chaos Space, pitch Thunder Dragon. And you might try commenting at the end of the combo, cool, you played around Nib, but you lost to Ash. If they were to Ash here, we could still Melody, pitch the third Thunder Dragon, search the other guy, summon Levy, and honestly, I don't think it does much there. Looking at it now, actually, I feel like we might, in this hand in particular, if they Ash Chaos Space, we'd be a little hurt. But we'd have the Lancia for follow-up to hopefully not die. But, like I said, we're playing around Nib this hand. I could do hands for Ash. I'd also be down to do hands for, like, combinations. If you guys are like, how do I beat Imperm Veiler, Imperm Ash? Like, stuff like that. Let me know, honestly, all you want to know about this deck, and I would be down to go over it. But we're playing around Nib right now. We're going to search black. We're going to summon black. This is the first summon. We'll go into Striker. And right here, because we have Chaos Space, this is just another like little way to play around other hand traps. Because we have Chaos Space, I'm going to go Chain Link 1 Black Dragon, Chain Link 2 Striker. Because I sometimes honestly like going Chain Link 2 Black, because if they have Veiler or Imperm with an Ash, I want to make it really appealing to use them both here, because then I feel good. Like, it's obviously going to hurt stopping two very important searches, but as long as I have any way to extend, which I do, then I have two hand traps out of their hand. I like making it appealing for them, but I also really want this Chaos Space to be live, so I'm going to make Black 1, Striker 2, to guarantee that I'm going to get the White Dragon, even if they had a Veiler Imperm. And so, we get the White, summon out the White. This is our third summon. And then we get to Chaos Space, put back. And when you get to Chaos Space, put this back, it just feels really good. Especially when I have the Melody of the Awakening Dragon, because this is going to search me the... I forget the name of the dude, but he adds a banished back. So then if I banish White, I'll be able to add White back. Or let me think of how it'll go, right? So this will go to grave. I'll banish White to summon Dark. Or no, I can't summon Dark. Ignore what I'm saying. Ignore what I'm saying. But I draw into Melody. And then from here, this third summon, we're going to go into... This is a tough spot right here, actually, on if I go into the Hieratic or if I go into Romulus. I think we kind of have to go Rom here. Then we're going to get Rom, Chainlink 1, White, Chainlink 2. And here, if they were to like Veiler Imperm the Rom, you would still have the Melody pitch and then the Levy to extend to at least, like worst case scenario, and on the Hieratic with the Lancia. That's what I like about now having hand traps in the deck is if I get hand trapped, I don't need to put up nearly as much follow-up, and I also don't have to overextend as much to make what seems like an unbreakable board, because if the board then does get broken, I'm just kind of out of it. Whereas if I can make like a subpar board, seemingly subpar, still hard to deal with, I can guarantee that I can live to the next turn with that board plus a high impact hand trap. I just feel a lot more comfortable. So here then we go with the Ravine. We're going to use the Ravine. The big thing about why I opted to go for this is because, as you noticed this whole time I was talking, I've been struggling to have 3 darks in Grave. This will confirm 3 darks for me. Unless they were to Ash or something here. Which if they do, again, like we still, worst case scenario, just special this, make the Hieratic and have a Lancia. But we also have this Melody that could potentially be follow-up. But if this goes through, we're sending, and then we're going to get the effect to search. If they Ash it here, then the Levy becomes just way stronger, because it now has the 3 darks, and we're going to add the Tracer. And then from here, I'll banish the 3. I'll summon the Levy. And then here, they could Nib. This, like, is a time where Nib is live, and not, like, the best time to do it, but it's a time that's viable, because I'm going to rip, and I have a 20% chance to hit the Nib. And so if they really want to keep it, the best thing they could do is use it. I don't think it's correct to use it, because if they do, I'm going to lose these. I still have ways to extend. And then they even know that I have Launcher Tracer. So they know I have ways to extend. But from here, so they drop the Nib, right? I have the Launch Tracer I still play, and they're down 2 cards because they lost Nib, and then I also rip a card out of their hand. So if they don't Nib, we might hit Nib, we might not, but they're down to 4 now. And they'll be at 5 on their turn when they draw. And then, because I don't have a crazy extender here, I'm going to link these 2 into the Hieratic Seal. If I had any one extender that I didn't mind losing, like I could go launch in a Tracer, but then I get hit really hard by Nib. But if, say, I had, I don't even really know, just like a Danger. I don't play Dangers in this list, but just any card that specials itself. I can't think of a great one off the top of my head. But if I had one, then I would special it. They would have to Nib there, or I'd go into the Appaloosa. But because we don't have that line, we're going to go for the Spheres line, where now at any point, if they Nib, I can get Brotar. Brotar can pitch a card to search probably a Levianeer, or I already used Levy, so any extender, which the first one I think of is the Chaos Emperor that this searches, so I might like pitch this, search that through a Nib, and then special that, and worst case, you're still ending on like a DPE. And so this is a decent way to play around them having Nibiru. And we have the Lancia, so it's not just DPE, it would be DPE Lancia. So from here then, we would launch special Tracer. And then this, at this point, just looks similar to normal dragons, like just the standard Dragon Link deck. And keep in mind, they're also at 4 cards in hand. So right here is where they would actually Nib if they have the Nib. And so if they were to Nib here, I'm just going to talk about exactly what we would do, and then I'll show you the rest of what I was going to do so that you as a player can then decide if you're against this deck, if you think it would actually be correct to Nib here. But this is where they typically would do it. And so if they Nib here, I get a Nib token. This will float into... I'll do it. I got Nibbed, and then I'll just put these cards back. It was a Seal, Tracer, Recharger. So we get Nibbed. I would Seal... There's also the choice to grab Seyfert off of Seal, which is kind of interesting. I have not normal summoned, so I could search a Dark Dragon that's a strong normal. I also could grab Red MD. I am Dark Locked, though, because of launch. We also have Melody as an extender. If I go for Brotar, I'm happy pitching a Melody because it doesn't do much. I think I would grab the Brotar. And so we'll grab Brotar, pitch Melody, and so I have to search a Dark Dragon. And we have not normaled, so adding this black metal is like really strong here, actually. I actually don't feel bad getting nibbed there at all the more that I'm looking at it. So we are Dark Locked, so we're going to go probably into an IP here. And then we'll get black metal effect. I think this... Oh, this is not banish, actually. So now we also have follow-up. So we'll get the black metal, which will add the red MD. Melody, pitch Thunder Dragon. Add the big chaos boy. And then we'll activate this. Pay 1,000 to add either Abza Router or Black Dragon. Not 100% sure which one I would want more here. It's a good question. So I'm going to be ending on Anaconda IP DPE, it looks like. The case to take Abza Router would be that if I go for a unicorn play, I could pitch it, spin, search, and have follow-up. And I could pitch it to search the level 1. And then the rocket is, or the router is also going to be engraved. So then not only is it like a really good follow-up for the following turn, but like that follow-up is going to provide more follow-up or an extender because it's going to search me the tracer. And so that seems really strong. But there's also a case to add this black. But I'm not going to have lights engraved really. So I'm going to opt to pay the 1,000 and add the Abza Router. Then this goes to the extra deck. And then I'm just going to activate its effect to special. Banishing a light. Oh, I would have had lights actually. So maybe dark is the right extender to take. But I'm going to opt for router. I like the idea of it. Banish a light. Banish a dark. What dark do I want to get rid of? Probably this. And then from here, I can banish this to special this. Although when this leaves the field, it goes to the bottom of the deck. So I'm going to throw him down there. And then we'll get the red MD effect, special. And then from here, we can go into the Anaconda. And then we summon the DPE. Now we have DPE IP Lancia. And that's like if we get nibbed, that's our follow-up. And we have Router Dragon as follow-up. We have the Celestial Dasher Engrave. And now I'm going to try to restore the hand and talk about if they didn't nib there, what I would be doing. So correct me in the comments if I'm wrong, but I believe this is where we left off, where I said that's what would happen if we got nibbed. And so now I'm going to show you from here how I would continue to extend. And then we could talk about if you think that nibbing here was right or not in the comments. And I'm going to go into the Chaos Dragon, or the Chaos Ruler, Mill 5. Oh wait, I gotta shuffle my deck. My bad. When I restored the game, I did not shuffle. I just put all the cards to the top. So let me give this a good shuffle. Watch me just mill the same ones. Hit a nib, a gamma, small world, chaos space. So I've already used chaos space, so this mill wasn't... Offensively, this mill is not very strong. Defensively, I get to add this nib, and now I've got nib Lancia. And then from here, we'll probably just Melody. Adding this bad boy. And then the dilemma that I would come across right here if they didn't nib actually is that this hit wasn't crazy. You typically, like, you can't guarantee this will be crazy, but it typically does do a lot. So we're in a spot now, honestly, where I want to use the Chaos Emperor to add a card back and then try to put an additional interruption up. But I probably do because of this. I don't want to forego my follow-up, though, because I don't have too much follow-up right now. And there's not a single card that I add that provides me a lot of follow-up. Oh, this is in deck, too. This is supposed to be in deck from the reset. That might have messed up my mill, but whatever. So then I would place this... We'll add the router here, because now if at any point they do nib, this is still going to get the Brotar, and this will go to extra. And then I'm going to special this out, banishing a light and a dark. And so, like, again, they nib here, we get the Brotar, we do the same thing as you just saw, except we wouldn't have this dude as an extender. But then here I can just straight go into a Zombie Stein, or I could link into an IP or an Anaconda. The reason that I'm opting for the Zombie Stein is because the IP and Anaconda are a lot more generic and easier to obtain, whereas this is a little more specific, but also still pretty high impact, and I have the Abza Router for the free discard. So here, if they nib, we just go into the Brotar, add the baby like you saw, or we could add a safer, normal it, and then make a link, and then we have the ability there through the Chaos Ruler engrave plus the extender that we got off of whatever Brotar searched, be it Safer adding back Levy or the baby adding back the dragon, to put up the IP Anaconda through the Nib here also. Except because they let the Chaos Ruler resolve, we also have Nib. So we would have IP, DPE, Lancia, Nib through it. And if they decide, you know what, Nib's not worth using here, or they don't have it, we still have Sphere, Zombie Stein, Lancia, Nib, with really good follow-up because this is pitching Router, which is going to search Tracer. This is then going to be able to tribute to summon out the Black Metal or the Safer, which gives us either Red MD or Levy. And also we now have the Chaos Space engraved for follow-up. So that's just like kind of my thought process with that hand on how I actively keep Nib in mind while I'm making my combos. And I'm going to do another hand for you. So this hand is a little dog shit, not going to lie. We have the 2 hand traps, which is really nice. Like this hand going second would feel pretty good. Because this is just like a 2-card out any board combo, basically. You Nib, and then whatever would stop Nib, you stop. This is really strong against... this is my favorite combination against Sword Soul and Bird Up. Because against Sword Soul, you can just drop this once they summon the Protoss, and they're like, Baron negate. You're like, nah, fam. And you wipe the board, and you don't lose to Darks. And then against the Bird Up deck, same thing. They make their whole board, you out it. But they're usually going to save a Barrel Canary, so there's that to deal with, which is honestly a little hard to deal with. So maybe there's a case where we do these in different spots, but I'm not sure. I need to test more with these hand trap combinations against that deck. But Thunder Dragon for Thunder Dragon. I digress. Let's search our 2. We'll add this and this. So specifically playing around Nib here, I'm going to commit to the normal of a Tracer. If you're afraid of Valor Ash Imperm though, there's a case to not do the Tracer. Because while I don't think it's usually optimal to stop these cards, right here stopping them would leave you in a very bad spot. Like Ash on this. Ash is actually fine on this. If they Ash Striker, you just Striker add Tracer and you're in the same spot you were before and you pass. But if they Valor Imperm, the Gamma isn't live, so it's just Nibiru versus the world. And so, since we're only playing around Nib, I'm going to continue to resolve it and show you just like, if you're afraid of Nib, what you can still do. But if you're afraid of those cards, if you notice like game 1, your opponent played those more. But if this is blind, if you think they're more likely to play Valor Imperm, which they probably are, maybe you respect those more than the Nib. But in a video where we're learning how I play around Nib, I'm going to respect Nib more. And I'm going to add back the Tracer after searching the field spell. Field spell special, and this is our 3rd summon. Effect pop special. This would be the 4th summon. And because we're fearing the Nib, like, there's a case where right here you would go into IP, or, not IP, Anaconda, but that would be your 5th summon. So on Nib, you're just going to, like, get nibbed. So I want my 5th summon to be something of substance. So, like, right here, there's no reason to nib me. I'm getting the value no matter what. So I'm going to mill my 5. And the mills are pretty lit. We milled the Ruler. Or, I mean, the Red MD, we milled the Chaos Space, and we milled an Abza Router. So here I'm going to add the Red MD. And then I'm going to get Router's effect to search. I've already normaled, and I've already used Boot Sector. So what I add here isn't really an extender. It's just follow-up for the following turn. And so I think I'm going to add the Rocket Synchron. And then from here, I think it would probably be a good spot for them to nib mate. No. So like they can nib here, right? And then because they'll think my Red MD's not live. But then I just special it back with this. So maybe they wait for the Red MD. But even then, right? So I banish this for Red MD. Now if they nib here, I have the Chaos Space draw. And that's about it. Whereas if they would have nibbed on this, then I would just summon it again and do it again. So I think right here would be the optimal spot to nib. I'll show you real quick what I would do if they didn't nib here. It would probably be special this. I'm dark locked, and so I think I would just go straight into Anaconda because I don't really have more extenders. Well, I mean, technically I would use this Chaos Space first to see what I draw. I did not mean to put that to the bottom of the deck, but I'm not going in to fix it. We're going to banish it. Put this to extra, draw a card. Drawing black metal, we already normaled. This does nothing. And red MD's right here. So yeah, we're probably just making Anaconda. And then they probably would nib there. And so if I, what's it called? If they nibbed on this summon, then I would have done the same thing, drawn off Chaos Space, and I wouldn't really have much. So this hand, I only had one way to really play, and it kind of fell flat to a nib, but I have Nib Gamma as my follow-up, and I've added more follow-up. So like my one Tracer turned into a Rocket Synchron with an Absa Router live, and so I think I went net positive. They lost a card in order for me to gain cards, and I got the draw. But I also have the nib. The thing that sucks is that Gamma is not live. But as long as I play the nib in a way that prevents me from dying on the following turn, and I have a chance to live, then the Gamma is going to be nice follow-up for me, because say I draw a power spell. I can't guarantee it. I'm going to click. Yeah, that's not a power spell. But if I were to draw a power spell, like another Chaos Space, like a Melody, then I activate it. I have the Gamma to stop their way of interrupting it. And so this card can occasionally help you play through boards, which is why I like it. I'm going to do one more hand because that one was a little anticlimactic. Let's hope this one's a little bit stronger. All right, so this is a God tier hand. And yeah, like there's not much more I could say about this hand. This is like really insane. And so this is just a little tidbit right here. I like to do where if I'm playing around nib in this hand, but I also like to play around droll for games 2, 3. I think that's very important. And a lot of times black metal as your normal is like one of the strongest ways to play around a droll, because you're going to get 2 searches here before they would have the opportunity to droll you. And then also, like, it sucks that I don't get to use these cards if I get drolled, but like I have launcher with a tracer, and so I'm going to put up a meaningful board no matter what through a droll here. Of course, this is not a droll video, and that is one that I definitely am willing to make if you guys are interested in it. So let me know that in the comments also if that's what you want. And even if all of you said I don't want that, I'd still probably do it, to be honest, because I playtest like this with myself when it's hard to find a queue on DB anyways. So like, why not record it? Like, I'm going to do it anyways. Might as well get people to watch it and get some subs out of it, you know? But so right here, this is my second summon. I'm not in nib range yet. And there's a case to like start extending with any of these cards, right? But I typically have found that I just want to keep the most amount of cards in my hand unknown as possible. Like right here, there's 4 unknowns. And so they have the world to fear. Whereas if I went Chaos Space, pitch like Tracer, now there's only 3 unknowns. Or 2, I think, because they would know this and they know what I searched. And so then they become more able to use their hand traps correctly because they have a greater synopsis on the amount of cards in my hand. So here I'm just going to extend with my red MD as far as red MD will take me before I decide to activate any other cards. A good example is like if I Chaos Space, right? Now they know I have Chaos Space in a card, they might Ash. Whereas here they might Ash if I decide to go into the Romulus, which I think in this hand I'm gonna. And so like this just gives them more opportunities to play incorrectly, because it wouldn't be incorrect, but because they don't know what I have. So here we're going to go ahead and we're going to search our what's it called? Our Ravine. And this is our 5th summon. So anywhere from here on out, we can be nibbed. That's important always to know, is when you can be nibbed. We have Launcher as a very strong extender, to the point where like this Tracer doesn't matter as much. So I think this will end up being a discard. I want to use Chaos Space because I want to get into the black and white dragon because of how much advantage they generate for you, especially with the Chaos Space Engrave and the Ravine. But I also... This is weird because I have a lot of gas, but a lot of it requires discard, but all in my hand is gas, so I don't really want to discard much. And I think the current objective is to put myself in a spot where I don't care if they nib me, and if they don't nib me, I make Appaloosa. I think when you have these hands that are all gas, no hand traps, it feels optimal to go the Appaloosa route, because you can afford to throw extenders at it. Whereas if I go the Hieratic Seal route, I have to make a subpar board and attempt to pass, and then if they nib, I have to have the extenders to follow through, and if they don't nib, then I just have a subpar board with a bunch of stuff in hand, but nothing in hand is stopping them from playing, and there's a chance I die. The amount of follow-up you have does not matter if your life points hit 0. So what am I going to do? I think I'll lead with the Chaos Space, and I'm going to pitch the Tracer, because I have Launcher. So I'm not too concerned with the Sector launch not being as strong right here. And then this is a play, like, if they ashed here, right? Like, I still have the quick launch to gain access to that engine in the Ravine. I would probably go Ravine dump launch, maybe. Or Ravine... It would be weird. I could Chaos Space draw first, actually. And then I would see what I would be working with from there. But they didn't ash because we're playing around Nib. And I'm going to go into the white. And just a quick disclaimer for y'all. Like, I know this is a video about Nib, but I tend to go on little tangents about each other hand traps, and it's just kind of how I think about it when I'm playing these type of test hands too, where the main focal point is play around Nib, but at the same time, in my mind, I'm thinking and respecting what I would do if I get hand trapped in each other place, so that when that happens, I've got a little more experience having thought about it. And I think it's very advantageous. Maybe it throws you guys off watching it. If so, I'm sorry. This might not be the video you were looking for, but it is how I think, and how I create is based on how I think. So yeah, from here, I want to extend with white, I think. But I'm not exactly sure how to go about it. Like, there's also a play where maybe I just go straight for Awakening. Because like I said, oh wait, is Striker once per turn to be summoned? I don't think it is. Yeah, so I think this is the line I'm going to take, actually. So I'm going to summon the white, banishing this, and I'm going to Chaos Space, put back the Striker to draw. If I draw black, I'm going to be pissed. I didn't. I drew Nib, and that's like pretty strong here. To the point where it could change the line, maybe. Where I could just make these go into the Hieratic now. And I could do what I was saying, where I put up like a semi-subpar board with intentions of just like passing. And then if they let it go through and they don't nib, then they have to deal with the board. And if they do let it go through, or I mean if they nib there, then I can extend, make another big board, and then have the nib. But I think here I'm going to go into Striker that I just put back. White is going to search me black. We still have the Awakening. We still have the quick launch. At this point, like, it's just not a spot where we even care about Nib. And then from here, this honestly, I don't know if this is the play I'd make, because it's a play I've never really made before, but I kind of want to experiment with it, and I'm just going to do it on video. We'll go into black. If that's the line we're going, then we're not going to banish this. We're going to banish, where's it at? I'll banish the Tracer, because there's no way to add this back anyway, so this might have just been the more powerful banish. Because then here we can go into the black. We can go into the Pisty. Even if we didn't banish that, it wouldn't be that big a deal, because we could still summon from grave, but this just gives us access to an additional card in grave. And then we could Pisty bring back this Tracer. And so, like, they could nib here. This would be probably a viable spot to hit me with the nib. But if they do, we have the boot sector, we have the quick launch, we have the ravine. The boot sector honestly wouldn't do much, so it might be the ravine discard. Or, we might end up having to pitch the nib if we got nibbed here. But, like, this, the main point is that the hand is still gas. I have 2 extenders to search off this. I have an extender here. And I would probably end up pitching the nib, but we would be safe from nib, and so we'd full combo. And then, if they don't, there might actually just be a case where I go these into seal. If they nib here, it's advantageous. And if they don't, I go into the Appaloosa only for 2, but it's giving me this Tracer as an extender too. And then I have the line where I could go for 3. And so from here on out, we wouldn't be able to be nibbed. And so I'm going to assume that they nibbed on that Pisty play. Pisty resolve summoning Tracer out, and they nib here. They'll give me my token. I think against this deck, the way I have it built, putting the token in the center would be correct. Because all the links I want to end on are downward facing, down left, down right arrows, which means if you hit the middle zone, I can only have 2 links, so I can't end on all 3 of these. Which oftentimes through nib, I might not even be ending on all 3, but if I can, then you want to be able to stop that. So the token would be here. I don't even care about the stats. They're all really weak. It's 1,000 defense and it's in defense. But the thing with that line is that I have a full graveyard now for all these other extenders I have. And so I think we're going to lead with this pitch nib. And like we have a 5-card hand to play through now after we put them in the spot where they have to nib. And we're going to add this. We're going to add the levy. They're at 4 in hand and they have the nib on field, which are both important to remember. Like 3,000 attack monster can oftentimes skip to battle and clear a negate. And so at some point on our turn, it would be beneficial to deal with that. And so here I think that I have not I did normal. I normaled that. So I don't think there's any crazy extender for Chaos Emperor to add back. So it might just be adding back a rando. Banish 3 for levy. We're going to banish dark, dark, dark. Ooh, no, I'm going to banish the tracer. I have launch, so that is an extender. So we'll leave that engraved. And then we'll rip a card from their hand. So now they're down 2. So on their turn, they'll have 4 cards. From here, we can activate this. Pay 1,000. Add tracer back. So now, like, this turned into a double extender instead of a single one because it, on its own, in the extra deck is an extender by banishing a light and dark. But also it got me the tracer that'll extend with the launch. But I still might pitch it for Ravine, to be honest. I'm not sure. I gotta think here. I think because we already got nibbed, we're not dark locked yet, but I think because of the nib being in the center zone, that the negate that I'm gonna forego would be this. Oh, also my Appaloosa is supposed to still be an extra deck because if they nib me there, I don't make the op. But because we've got hip through nib here, this isn't as strong. It does give us follow-up, but I think because I only have access to 2 links, that I'm going to go for Anaconda IP, because that'll give me DPE Appaloosa, which just feels stronger overall. Plus, I'll probably end on one of my 3 Omni Negates. And so since we're willing to forego that, I'm okay with dark locking kind of early. So I'll special, effect, tribute, because I've been having this problem where I don't know what I want to discard off the Ravine, but the Chaos Ruler might just change that. It might mill a bunch of stuff worth discarding. The only scary thing going into that here instead of like the Boral Savage would be that I have a chance to mill bad. Like I can mill Fusion Destiny cards, then I'm forced to add them. But the fact that I have this to special the level 1 means that the ruler is also going to turn into the hot red. Unless I mill that, which would also kind of suck. So this is kind of like the higher risk, higher reward play, which after going through a nib, I kind of like that type of play. Plus, like, worst case, this specials out, and then I can make the Anaconda. And then I could bring this back, overlay for the Zombie Stein, and that's like the worst case scenario. But best case scenario, I mill some advantage and I mill a hand trap. So Brotar's already advantage. Driver doesn't matter, it's a light. And we hit a nib, so I'm going to probably add this nib. I think the optimal line for me is going to be the quick launch. I might not even end up using the Ravine, and I might keep that for follow-up, since I don't really want to discard nib for it. And there's not any crazy extender it gets me here that would be more powerful than having the nib as follow-up. So here I'll sink 9. And then... Do I even sink 9, actually? Let me think on that. I have 3 monsters here. This could come back and this could come back, giving me 5 monsters total. This could pitch for Abza Router. Or, I mean, Safert, which would get Levy back, which would give me 6 monsters, which would let me go into IP, Anaconda, and either this or this. And so the question becomes, do I value the nib more than I would value this or this? And I think the answer is yes. I think I value the nib more, plus having the Ravine as follow-up for later. So if I want to keep the ruler for follow-up and this for follow-up too, I think I actually wouldn't synchro. Oh, no, I probably do. I'm going to forego the ruler as follow-up, I think, because I want to get the synchro, and I also want to special this out by banishing 2. And here I could overlay and have 2 Omni negates, but I would personally rather have access to the DPE package, considering that it also gives you follow-up and takes some garnets out of the deck. Also, my life isn't actually this low. I think every time I've summoned it through these test hands, I haven't reset the life. So I would be at 5,000 because I also use this dude. So then I'll send these, summon this. And also a big thing that I actually learned the hard way on DB earlier yesterday, actually. I forgot to pop the guy's nib. But if they nib you right, DP is a really strong follow-up because then you go to end phase. And on the end phase, you want to do this so that they can't Veiler you specifically, although they would have Veilered already. I just think it's better safe than sorry. But you would use this, pop and pop. And now their nib is cleared. They're going to have 4 cards to play with. And they have to out both of these in under 5 summons. And so Hot Red can take care of whatever would out DPE. DPE takes care of a problem, floats, and it's just follow-up. And then I also have the nib to like punish them for however far they have to overextend to get rid of these. And then we also have the added benefit of these 2 engrave. The Ravine is going to be able to discard whatever we draw. So if we draw a monster that can't be summoned, Ravine can pitch it. If we draw a spell, we can just set it, set Ravine, and activate Celestial. And then we also have the follow-up from the Chaos Emperor Dragon being able to special. We have the follow-up from Brotar. If something I control gets destroyed, I could special it, pitch, Ravine, search if I would like to. Or just special it as an extender. Like if they go battle phase, I've got 3 cards, they attack 3 cards, I bring that back, I'm just going to have an extra body on board. And so yeah, I feel like that is a decent board through a nib, where they also only have 4 cards because I got to hit a Levy Rip. And so I know this wasn't a like definitive answer to how to play around Nibiru, but I hope that the video kind of helped you, that seeing how I think about playing around those cards helps you, and maybe you could sit down with not even this deck, whatever deck you're playing, try testing hands like this and come up with your own real answer to how does my deck play around Nibiru. So thank you guys for watching, and if you felt like this video brought you value, go ahead and subscribe to me. I would appreciate that. It would bring value to me. And if you have any feedback on how I could have played these lines better, let me know, because I'm trying to get as good as I can with this deck. It's a really fun deck. And so, yeah, thank you guys. Have a good one.